Okay, everyone, it is 3:30, so I'm going to get started. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see you. As usual, we have a guest presentation today, and today it's going to be on the coach satisfaction survey update. And it's going to be presented by the Senior Vice Provost, Regents Professor, and former Faculty Senate Chair, Doug Call. Doug, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Eric. Rob, can you go and throw my slides up? Thank you very kindly, sir. So it is a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see many of you, and I'm sure I will as more people come online. What I want to do today is give you an update on our action report for the coach survey from 2022. That report and the original report on the findings that we had originally are all posted on the Provost website, and the address is given there. If you just go to our website, WSU's website, and search on coach, that will get you there just as fast. I just want to note that all the good things in today's presentation are the product of Laura Hill and Katie Cooper. Anything else you can blame on me, and we'll go forward from there. So just a quick reminder what the coach faculty satisfaction surveys are. These are the Harvard Collaborative on Academic Careers in Higher Education. So this program has been underway for, I think, at least 2 decades. And it's an effort to have a standardized methodology for surveying faculty satisfaction and faculty lives to help institutions like WSU identify where there are problems that we can have make data-informed decisions, essentially. And so it's a fairly rigorous and very standardized approach to doing surveys with an ability to compare it with other institutions as a consequence of that. It is an annual survey of faculty satisfaction, although at WSU, as far as I can tell, the earliest participation was in 2008. We also participated in 2017 and, of course, in 2022. The major buckets from 2014 mapped to 2022, things were not as mappable from 2008, so that wasn't included in our preliminary analysis that we published back in September. In 2022, when we took the survey, there were 82 different universities involved, including ours, and we had a participation rate of about 48% overall. Out of those other 81 universities, the average was about 45, I think, 45, 46%. I'm not going to go over those results from that coach because we've already that's on the website and it's in our report. But I do want to remind you of the domains that the survey encompasses. That includes nature of work with respect to service, research, and teaching, resources and support for those brackets as well. Cross-silo work and mentoring, tenure and promotion, appreciation and recognition, institutional leadership, shared governance, and departmental engagement, quality, and collegiality. One of the highlights of our findings is basically this table here, where we found the strengths and weaknesses, and this is really with respect to the comparison between 2014 and 2022. We had a significant increase in satisfaction. And by the way, these questions, most of them are on a satisfaction scale. How satisfied are you with X, Y, or Z? And in terms of departmental leadership and collegiality, we had very nice increases in the scores of satisfaction in those areas since 2014. There was also a significant improvement in tenure and in mentoring, particularly at the pre-tenure level. We still have troubles with mentoring in our weaknesses category, particularly in the career track category, and thinking about the associate to professor rank promotion. On the weaknesses side, we also, of course, have compensation that's universally a concern, concerns about equity, inclusion, and belonging, faculty recognition and appreciation, that mentoring piece, the nature of the workload and how it's distributed, promotion and tenure clarity, and again, this speaks to that associate to professor rank promotion, and issues and concerns in shared governance. So what we did after receiving the aggregate data, so in 2022, we received basically averages of satisfaction rankings across all the different questions, which were broken down into some discrete categories, such as pre-tenure and tenured and associate or assistant and full professor categories. Once we received that, we formed subcommittees to look at the different domains, and we asked for feedback and what I'm calling here scoping, which was basically, well, let's just put a whole bunch of ideas on paper that range from completely low-hanging fruit to completely absurdly ridiculous, but let's get it on paper so we can have a conversation. We published those preliminary findings in not the recommendations or ideas, but at least the aggregate findings were published in September of 2023. And then Laura Hill and Katie Cooper, who are co-chairs with me, we socialized those findings and collected feedback using town halls at each of the campuses and meeting with other groups such as the AFW. That feedback was evaluated to identify actionable steps, and the report was approved by Provost Chilton in 2024. So what kind of criteria do we use for selecting actions? Well, the preference, of course, are going to be for activities that address one or more of the domain weaknesses. These would be activities that can be executed in a timely manner. We would like to see the benefits accrue to all faculty, and by that I mean considering demographics and geography, and rank and track, so that we are addressing issues across all of the faculty at WSU. And of course, whatever we do propose needs to be feasible given the resources available, and we go forward from there. Who are the actors? This is just really a statement to me to remind you that some of the things that I'm about to talk about are did not originate here in the Provost's office, but we are partners in those efforts. And I want to do credit as we go forward. I'm not trying to claim that. And if I come across that way, I do apologize. It's not intended whatsoever. So one of the areas in the action, thinking from an action plan perspective, and addressing the dissatisfaction in the area of promotion criteria and honorific recognition, we've decided to take a page from Seattle University, and this is based on a presentation at a Vaults conference last fall. Kudos to Advance for putting this on, where they did an inventory of faculty activities across the university, and I'd like to do the same here. And this again speaks to giving voice to all the activities that faculty are engaged with, whether it be in a research focused area to extension, as just an example. With that inventory, it gives us a baseline to talk about which activities we want to make sure are included or considered in the review process. This is a question of inclusivity of those efforts and recognition of those efforts. So develop an inventory of faculty activities across the WSU system, and then re-examine our annual review process for the inclusivity of faculty effort. I'm also proposing that we re-examine the role of activity insight in this. There's a couple of ways to think about this. Activity insight is a very useful tool for collecting data for institutional reports and tracking institutional metrics. It is less useful on an individual basis for annual reviews. Many of us can actually do our annual reviews without any interaction with activity insight. So it kind of becomes some participate, some don't, and you basically don't get very good data on either side. And so what's the point of this? Well, there are colleges that have really leaned into the use of activity insight. Connors most recently has really leaned into it and has made some progress in turning this tool into more useful toolbox for their needs. So one way to think about this is, should we keep activity insight? And if we do, should we be leaning into it as an entire institution? Should we keep an activity insight and make it dean's discretion where they would apply it in the colleges where it's being used, but also provide support so that if there's another dean who's looking at, for example, the success that Connors is having and saying, you know, we really should look at that, we should be able to support them in making those, working with their faculty to see if they can pull it off as well. The other option is to replace it with, again, probably separating that data gathering component from the faculty annual review process. Those are the ideas we'd like to discuss in that area, what we call phase one of the faculty recognition initiative. In phase two, this would use the information and knowledge and ideas that we gathered in that phase one to revise annual review guidelines and implement those hopefully in the spring of 2026. These are all tentative dates, folks, until we have a better idea. Could move faster. So we'll see how it goes. And then develop also a process for regular review of P&T guidelines across the system. We still have a few units that don't have them or have very old ones or the ones that just need to be updated. And I'd like to lean into some ideas for how we can support. This isn't trying to be critical. This is an idea is to provide support to make sure we fill those gaps. So faculty have a better understanding of the expectations within their own units. Oops, my apologies. Okay, other planned activities. This one I need to think about a bit more. I realize it could be somewhat controversial, and the last thing we want to do is impose more work on anyone. But we are talking about the possibility of requiring a review of faculty activities in the fourth year of the post-associate to ensure that faculty are well positioned to seek promotion to professor in the upcoming 1 to 3 years. And the rationale behind that really came from focus groups where we learned, or in my case, I learned, that some units expect faculty to, in the associate level, to approach the chair in order to basically start the process of promotion. That doesn't work well for everybody. Some people will hesitate. It's an uncomfortable position to be in a power dynamic. There are potential, and it may hit different demographics disparately. So the idea here is that we would take that decision out of it, other than the decision that faculty could opt out of the process if they wanted to, but chairs and directors would be expected to just automatically do this. This could be in the form of an intensive review, which we know is, quite frankly, intensive. That's a lot of effort, or potentially we could be talking about a different career review process to make sure that everybody's meeting expectations, and meeting expectations as in what I'm doing, my chair and I agree is what I should be doing, and it's in my trajectory is in the right direction to make things come together for the promotion. So a bit more thinking to get in a solid space there, but that's kind of the direction I'd like to go. Develop resources for faculty to describe the impact of their work, particularly in the context of community engaged scholarship. And we already have a committee thinking about this right now. Models that we're thinking about and they're open to discussion include providing training to help faculty describe the impact of their research. And this, particularly when you're dealing with community engaged scholarship, which doesn't have your standard metrics that we might have in a research intensive conventional STEM program, such as where I'm from, where we might use an H-index has much more value than it would in understanding the impact of community engaged scholarship. But a lot of faculty don't have could use help in developing their skill set for describing their own impact. Sometimes people are just not very good at describing that, generally speaking, because they don't want to brag on themselves. And what I need them to do is brag on themselves. So one of the goals here is to help develop those skills. But another possible role is, for example, to have a standing committee. Minnesota does this, University of Minnesota, that serves a role as an outside third-party reviewer. So if you're in a unit that is not used to seeing community engaged research, as one example, or scholarship, you could have an objective outside review panel at the university that could weigh in with an opinion on the impact of that work to help give the department better context to understand that effort. So there's some things we're discussing in that area. Again, I'd like to develop a workshop or other resources on how to write impactful nomination letters for faculty honorifics. This is a little bit related to the idea how to describe the impact of your work and the value of that going forward. But if we really would like to be pushing faculty honorifics, we have an investment in academic analytics now to help identify opportunities for honorifics. But to get there, we have to identify champions willing to lead those efforts, and people willing to be nominated and qualified to be nominated. But to really seal the deal, those nominations need to address the actual impact of what people are having. So you differentiate your nominee from the rest of the crowd that also has lots of good stats, but may not have good letter writers. So we want to be on top of the heap. So that's the goal in that particular area. We also recognize that, we had a 7% decline in satisfaction with research opportunities since 2014, or research support, excuse me. And I don't have any specific proposals to share with you right now, but we're hoping to have some more thought in this and talk about more specific proposals to advance the research enterprise by the end of July. That's a hope, and I'll do my best to push that along and work with the Office of Research, who's really been stepping up with some new ideas too. So I'm excited to be able to share more as we go forward. Other planned activity, other potential activities that we've been thinking about, and this is one that falls squarely into the efforts of the Faculty Senate. And hats off to the executive and Christine Horn for the program that potentially offer career track professional leave, and that proposal is working through the system, and I hope we can have a decision soon. We'd also like to talk about potentially offering ongoing financial incentives and further other support for faculty to engage with high performance learning methods such as student service learning, to just grow that part of our enterprise that has enormous benefits both for the faculty and the students, which also helps with retention of our students, particularly at the undergraduate level. Very interested in working more with Faculty Senate and HRS to conduct a system-wide review of practices and policies on staff hiring, to identify concerns, which we know there are many, and to propose solutions that are workable within the systems that we are constrained to work within. So I'd like to put some more time and effort into that. We're interested in developing a philanthropically funded scholarship program to allow WSU employees to enroll in WSU Global courses. Right now, there are other reasons why that won't work if we didn't have this kind of support. So this might be a workaround to help WSU employees take advantage of global courses using our lower cost model that we have available for face-to-face courses. And is also very interested in having the appointment of a systems level position in DEI leadership. Going forward, Coach 2024, yes, we are already back into the next round. This launches in early February, so this month. Please expect to see a formal invitation for participation from Provost Chilton, hopefully as early as next week. We do have to coordinate this with Coach. The faculty will receive a survey link to go to that. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete the survey. All faculty with an FTE of greater than or equal to 0.5 are invited, with one exception I'll mention, but please, if you don't see your invite and you're concerned and you would like to help, I can help you figure out what happened, and we can go from there. Please email me if you have any questions. We will have campus and college level results this time that we did not have in 2022. And unlike 2022, we will have access to individual record data, which allows us to analyze cross-sectionality of variables. And let me come back to the human subjects components of that. But I just want, for those of you who find that statement to be somewhat confusing, I just want to give you an example of what it might look like. So with the 2022 data, we have a question, what's your level of satisfaction with clarity of whether I will be promoted? And we have a satisfaction level of 37.4 overall. We know that women were at 39.4 and faculty of color were at 36.8, but I cannot tell you what women who are faculty of color felt in terms of their responses or their level of satisfaction to that variable. So this one small example that we will be able to address in more detail, plus of course the whole potential for multivariate analyses in looking at relationships between these variables. Now, the important qualifiers for the 2024 survey, as with the last one, faculty with associate dean or higher appointments are excluded from the survey. This is about rank and file faculty. Questions about faculty leadership will be clearly defined this time. Last survey, it wasn't entirely clear who was being evaluated with those questions about faculty leadership. This time it is clearly defined as Faculty Senate. The Provost's office will not have access to the record level data, flat out will not. That is an important IRB criterion. It's important to protect anonymity. Instead, the data will be firewalled and analyzed by institutional research. Stephanie Kane and her team are extraordinarily well qualified to help us make sure we get the best information from this data possible and protect anonymity, as this is governed by IRB and human subjects protocol. And by the way, one example of what that looks like, just so I can try and build confidence that this is a secure and anonymous situation, is we might see situations like this. I pulled this off of the last aggregate data set. One question was asking for clarity of expectations in patient care and client services, and the reality was there wasn't enough responses in order to have an answer. This is what we see in the data set, N less than 5. Anytime we have a field with an N less than 5, there is no report of what the outcome was because of the potential loss of anonymity when we have small sample sizes. And so that's one other way that we will be protected in this fashion. So when COACH is announced, hopefully next week, please encourage your colleagues to participate. I want to reinforce the idea that we can start with data, which leads to the discussion and the scoping of activities, which leads to action. Without the data, it is really hard to move the needle. This data gives us something to really dig into and have some deep conversations about. And this only works well. The data is representative of the faculty population. I will say we did not have what I would call a super representative sample last time. Disproportionately high response rate with women, disproportionately low response rate for men, just as an example. So getting everyone possible to engage on this will be very important to get the best information possible for moving forward with new actions. In preparation for this, I did receive a couple of questions I want to just quickly hit in the times that we have left here. And one is points out that the COACH survey website states that the survey was, quote, partially funded with state funds provided to support the state mandatory faculty climate survey. What was the source or sources of funding other than state funds? Well, I guess you can still call that state funds. It wasn't the money that was used. The money that was used to arrange the contract with COACH came directly from the state through legislation through the legislature. The other source of money is really the faculty salaries that went behind running this process. That includes in institutional research and people like myself who are spending FTE working on this project. What state entity mandated this survey? It was literally the Washington State Legislature. And did the state entities receive a full report, including the quantitative and qualitative data? I'll show you briefly here a slide at the end, and I'll take more questions, but the enabling legislation does require that they receive reporting on a regular basis. The first major report, of my understanding from reading the legislation, will be in December of 2024, so this year. They will receive our reports. They do not receive the raw quantitative data. They will not receive the qualitative data. And this reaches to the last question here is, when will the qualitative comments be released? We can't release the qualitative comments. That would be a breach of IRB protocol. Qualitative comments are very important for helping deliver context, but they also are very difficult to keep anonymous if they get too specific. So there are ways around that. Paul Skilton from College of Business in Tri-Cities did some lovely preparation or work with us early on with word clouds, for example. We could potentially release that if people find value in that. It's really hard to interpret a word cloud in terms of what's the next, what's the conclusion you would draw. So I'm not sure if that's a huge utility, but it is something that we could possibly do. But the individual comments we simply can't put out in a public format. Just in case you want to look it up, I'm not going to go through this busy slide here, but the enabling legislation for this particular set of activities was Washington State Senate Bill 5227 that was fully enacted in July of 2021. From that, I'll just briefly highlight that we had a number of people helping with subcommittees and discussions of the activities underlining the 2022 survey. We have a few minutes. I'm happy to take any questions or address any concerns or any other feedback anyone has. Alan.
Yeah, hi, Doug. Thanks for the overview of the last survey and what we're doing going forward. So considering that the report from the 2022 the action plan just came out. Is the rationale for doing another survey simply that the state mandates it? Because, we're not going to see how things have changed since the, action plan just came out. You might get kind of the same kind of feedback again in the 2024 survey.
We might, and ideally, you could argue that a delay in that survey might be useful, but we signed a contract a while ago to set this up. There were some delays in moving things forward. The tragedy that happened in Moscow, just as an example, about the time we were really getting moving on this last January, really was pushed a number of activities aside as an example of the kind of things that we can't predict in terms of delays. The good news is we do have a website up and running. We know how to move forward more effectively going forward. I think we can turn the next survey results and discussion around a little faster, but I don't know how far the needle will move. We'll just have to wait. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, we are mandated to do one every 5 years, some kind of survey, and HRS is doing their survey every other year. So my recollection is that does include both faculty and staff. We have a lower reporting rate from faculty with the HRS survey. This one is specific to faculty. My hope is that we will secure funding to continue more news surveys going forward. But this is what we're working with right now. Thank you for your question, Alan. Any other questions? I think we got about a couple minutes.
Other questions for Doug?
Feel free to email me too, or give me a call.
All right. Well, thanks, Doug. That was very informative, and it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, folks. If there are no further questions for Doug, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Our first agenda item is the approval of minutes from the January 18th Faculty Senate meeting. Do I have any comments or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll say the minutes are approved. On to announcements. So a couple of information items. So the Faculty Senate executive officers met with the president and provost on the 23rd of January. We mostly spent time talking about topics that had been brought up in constituent concerns, including the review of administrative personnel and the inclusion of 360 review in that, possibility of tuition relief for faculty and staff for taking courses through the global campus system. The Valley and the faculty salary equity program were amongst the topics that were discussed. Also, our next meeting with upper administration will be the meeting with Provost Chilton and her team on the 20th of February. That's upcoming. I will also present to the Board of Regents on March 8th. And then there's a minor change bulletin number 7, Exhibit 381A. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none. Remarks. So new Faculty Senate concerns and activities. We had a fairly limited selection of topics come up, largely because many of the faculty that reached out were concerned about things that were ongoing with the graduate ASC union, and of course that it's tentatively been resolved. I believe that agreement was ratified a couple of days ago, so it's been nice to see that come to some sort of closure. We had a question about the availability of assistance for childcare that Chair Electricity Klein has addressed on our forum website. And we will look further into that. And then we had a bunch of questions about relating to various issues of WSU's finances and expenditures. And a reminder that Vice President Leslie Brunelli will be presenting to the Faculty Senate on February 29th. And if you have questions of that nature, she would be happy to answer them during her presentation. Second, a reminder that the course review timeline is the deadline for submitting additional courses for review is coming up. They need to be in by February 14th. if they're going to be reviewed this spring. If they're not submitted by the February 14th, then they'll be reviewed in the fall during the first Senate meeting. And finally, remarks, again, the Faculty Senate executive election application will close on Tuesday, February 13th at 5 p.m. So we are still interested in hearing from faculty who want to be considered for chair of the Faculty Senate. Okay, questions about that? Hearing none. Any additions or changes to the agenda? If not, we'll move on to action items. A reminder that only faculty senators are eligible to vote in these polls. So if you are not a voting member of the Faculty Senate, please do not respond to the polls that you will see appear on your screen. First action item is item
375.
what? Oh, sorry, that's a long number. Item 375 from FSA, proposed faculty manual updates regarding the faculty categories. Judy McDonald is here. Are there any questions before we launch a poll? All right, Matt, can we launch a poll?
All right. Poll is launched. We have 57 approve and 0 reject.
Great, so that passes. Item number 2 is the undergraduate major change bulletin number 4, exhibit 376A. This would have gone through our course review process. I don't believe we had any comments.
No responses were received.
No responses were received. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's written right in front of me. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, can you launch a poll?
Poll is launched. We have 60 approve and 0 reject.
Okay, so that passes. Item number 3, the UCOR changes approved by the UCOR committee. Bulletin number 2 courses, it's exhibit 379A, and just from the December course review bulletin. Again, no responses were received. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, can you launch a poll, Matt?
Poll is launched. We have 59 approve and 0 reject.
Great, thank you. So that passes, and then our final agenda item for the day is item 4, graduate major change bulletin number 4, exhibit 380A. And again, this is from the December course review bulletin, and no responses were received. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, Matt, can you launch the poll?
Poll is launched. Zoom cast poll content. We have 60 approve, 0 reject.
So that motion passes. Thank you all. Moving on to discussion items. Our first discussion item is 382. It's from the AAC undergraduate professional major change bulletin number 6, exhibit 382A. Naveen and Becky are here to answer any questions. John, I see your hand up.
Yes, so on page 18, this isn't a change, but the language here is rather confusing to me. There's a difference between a course grade and a GPA. So if you look at the electrical engineering program in Vancouver, page 18, the sentence just before first year, it says all upper division electrical engineering courses must be completed with a minimum 2.0 average GPA. So that's kind of redundant to have an average GPA because that's a grade point average. So we've got the average grade point average, but I'm not sure if we're talking about courses must be completed with a C or better, or you just need to maintain that GPA. So if you get a D and a B, your GPA is 2.0 or above. Are you good with that? So I think, although that's not a change, that was in the catalog before, there might be an opportunity going forward to just clarify if that's, for the courses individually, a 2.0 or a C or better, or that's just the GPA.
Thank you, John. I think it's just the GPA. It's not the C or the higher. It's the probably we'll take the average out. It's a maintain 2.0 GPA.
Okay, but then courses must be completed with, okay, so because on the Pullman campus electrical engineering program, everything has to be completed with a C or better. So if they're allowing Ds in Vancouver, so be it.
Yeah, I think we have I think we have a different kind of different curriculum of different kind of rubrics for Pullman and Vancouver. So I think they didn't mandate C or C and above in Vancouver.
Okay, might want to double check if that's truly the case. And okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, and Praveen. Malong, you have a question?
Yes, hello. So I have a question about the data analytics related program. So for example, on page, any of them really, page 7 at the bottom right there. So the second term of third year CPTS 451 or 351 is still required. And all the prerequisite has been removed from the earlier years. I'm wondering if this is addressed to the department yet?
Again, Praveen, do you have a response?
I can actually respond.
Okay.
So I did bring this up with Anand, the new interim director of electrical engineering and computer science, Venera, the curriculum coordinator for computer science, and Andy O'Fallon, who teaches a few of those courses. I pointed this out to them. They didn't have any concern.
Oh, so, but that means we need to update the CS prerequisites? I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
I pointed this out and they didn't raise any concerns.
okay,
So
all right. I should be on that committee as well now, so I'll check with them. But so basically, right now, that 451, which is the database course, all the prerequisites have been removed, and if that's fine, then we need to modify the CS catalog for that.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Great. If not, we'll move on to item number 2. It's the UCOR course renewals and changes approved by the UCOR committee, bullet number 3, exhibit 383A. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay. I am hearing none, so we'll move on to item 3, undergraduate major change bulletin number 5, exhibit 384A. No responses were received from the January review bulletin. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Item 4, Professional Health Sciences, Major Change Bulletin number 3, Exhibit 385A. Again, this is from the January Course Review Bulletin, and no responses were received from there. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Item number 5, Major Change Bulletin number 5, Exhibit 386A. This is Graduate Major Change Bulletin number 5, received from the January Course Review Bulletin, and no responses were received. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Item 6, the proposal to discontinue the Bachelor's of Science in Viticulture and Enology on the Pullman campus. Exhibits 387A through C, and Praveen and Becky are here to answer any questions. Any questions about that? Hearing none. Our final discussion item, item 7, is the proposal to extend the Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Media Production to the WSU Global Campus. Exhibits 388A through E. Praveen and Becky are here to address questions. Questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, that concludes our discussion items. Next agenda item is constituent concerns. Any constituent concerns this week? Joe.
Hi, Joe Cook, economics. So the concern is about grade inflation. There was a New York Times article a few weeks back about grade inflation in the Ivies, mostly outward looking, trying to impress employers with high GPAs. The question and concern is, do we think there's any grade inflation happening at WSU? If you looked over the past 10 years, is it out of line with our peers? But there's a particular concern that came up in our discussion as a faculty, which is the interaction with enrollment-based budgeting. So if dollars follow students, if students like classes where they get an easy A, particularly in the big service classes, the 101 kinds of classes, are we all trapping ourselves in a situation where we have to not grade too hard because we end up losing students to other UCOR classes, et cetera, and that ends up costing us money. And so it's in our financial interest to raise our grades and make our classes easier. And this is not something that an individual department, of course, can solve. It's only something a university level analysis can help. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a great point. Any response or other discussion? Okay, we will look into that. Heiko.
I had a constituent contact me not long after IT had posted this limit on storage on OneDrive. And apparently that was enacted today without any consultation with anyone. And this constituent is very concerned as a senior member of the faculty that they are going to be potentially losing stored data and also losing data that have to be reported to the federal government, which then creates a situation where this is a violation of federal law. So I guess the question that they and several others have is, why did this come out today without any warning and give everyone any options for where to store data that they've had on the OneDrive for a long period of time?
Yeah, thanks, Heiko. Maybe I'll respond. I actually got a call from the head of ITS this afternoon, shortly after this email from Microsoft. Essentially, Microsoft did this to us subtly and with no warning. So ITS is obviously very well aware of the situation, is concerned about it, is working to address it. What precisely is going to be done about it on a systems level is not clear. On an individual level, I was instructed to tell your constituents to contact the Crimson Service Desk to work something out and see what the options for individuals are at this point. And I thank you for bringing it up. Obviously, that was an alarming email to receive for a lot of us. But I think we will leave it to Tony to work out what needs to happen next. John Sabine.
I just want to echo the previous concern that was brought to the attention. I don't have much to add other than this doesn't seem to be acceptable for R1 university.
Well, I have no doubt that a solution will be possible. I think it is disappointing that Microsoft chose to do what it did. But I agree with your concerns, obviously. We'll see what happens, but we'll keep on top of this. Other concerns? Well, going once, going twice. Thank you all for your participation and your service to Washington State University. I will adjourn the meeting and see you in 2 weeks. Thank you all.
4:16.